What do you think about the oncology conversation? Are we all warriors? Should we all be wearing our bows? Not today. Beth Hoag and I, physiotherapist from up in Canada, are speaking of a completely different paradigm and where her mess became her success. Listen in to another episode of Owning Her Health.
Welcome to this episode of Owning Her Health with your host, Dr. Lisa Holland, PT. Join Lisa as she starts the conversation on what it really takes to become a healthy, wealthy, and whole CEO of your life. Listen in to real talk by real lady leaders in all walks of life as they open up on personal health stories, wealth, career, and feminine abundant living. Learn how to grow by owning your body, expanding your mind, and aligning your soul with the purpose only you can pursue in this world. Happiness begins with owning her health right now.
And women bring these social healings. A lot of us are healthcare providers, but a lot of us are coming out of corporate and education and all these different even governance. I'm seeing where our journeys, our stories, the things that made us the women we are what our mess is our success, bringing it into these methods and these methodologies. And Beth Hoag is no different. Beth is a physiotherapist from Canada, and she is radically changing the conversation on oncology, cancer care, basically switching it in from get a lot of people are, as you know, it's a lot of breast cancer survival, ovarian cancer survival, colon cancer survival. What Beth is doing is getting people out of survival mode and into this idea of thriving in rehab and into the whole thing of the healing process. So thank you so much for Beth being here. As I said in the intro, we kind of met and doing things professionally, but I've really been able to see this evolution of you. And why don't you give us a little synopsis of how you went from, because I know your story wasn't even like, I'm going to go be a physical therapist in the traditional sense. How did you get from a kid going to school with the interests you had, dad's a doctor, people are more, structurally minded, to being like, I'm going to radically change how we're talking about cancer? What's your story?
How do I summarize that quickly? Yeah, so I grew up, I think, in a very scientific household. Both my parents were physicians. We were very science and math based and very sort of logical, rational based family. And so that's really how I grew up. And I have these memories of being this creative little kid. But then as I grew up, I sort of fell in line naturally because that's, how we're raised.
Mm-hmm.
And I also grew up with a mother who had breast cancer, metastatic breast cancer. So that was an enormous piece of my development and experience growing up, and watching her sort of modify her life and adapt her life to be able to live a meaningful life in a way that she could within her means. And so I'll fast forward to, I eventually ended up in physiotherapy school. I was a lost kid at 19. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I eventually found my way into physiotherapy school. Ironically, 2 months before my mother died. And I didn't know that at the time. But so that was a very difficult choice to make, but it was a true gut choice that to this day I'm still very proud of, because I left at a very difficult time to go to physio school. But it absolutely was the right call for me. It became very evident to me that my calling, my mission, my passion, whatever you want to call it, was to work with cancer, people who had cancer, and within my abilities as a physio. And that just wasn't being done when I went to physio school. So that really truly became sort of my driving force, or a motivator, if you will. Every project in physio school was related to cancer. No one was doing that stuff. And it really was just that feeder at the back of my head. And at the beginning, again, it was very logical, rational, scientific, if you want to call it that. And that's certainly still a huge basis. But the evolution of that through my practice, I've been practicing for almost 18 years now, and 15 of that in cancer rehab. And the evolution of that, well, it's been just that. It's been an evolution. It's what I have seen in my own life with my own experiences, losing my mom and eventually, unfortunately, losing my infant son, was just this massive importance of the connection between mind and body. And though I know in the science world, we're getting better at it, but we don't like to talk about it. We sure didn't like to 18 years ago. But there's so much science starting to come out to back that, the wisdom that we've known through other methods for decades and centuries, if not. And I truly saw with my patients and my own experiences this massive emotional trauma when you're going through cancer treatment. Yet the focus is so solely on the cancer cells and getting you through treatment or surviving treatment. There's lots of these battle analogies that we can talk about that I really struggle with, because it's about this survivor. So really finally truly stepping in for me, I broke away and opened my own practice about 8 years ago. And that has actually probably been the biggest evolution, because I've been able to practice in a way that's true to me and into a way that I see that my clients need and want and respond to and appreciate. And that really has been creating a safe space, a space for curiosity and exploration, as they go through this process and beyond, and really learning to reconnect the body and the mind, because true health and well-being, you just can't separate these things into parts.
Right.
We have to do more than treat the cancer cells.
Right. Yeah. And that's really crazy, right? We're treating the cancer cells. We're not even treating them. We're killing them. We're killing the cancer cells. And in the process, the way the methodology we have is, well, we're going to kind of kill everything that acts like this. But then there's not that switch over to kind of, are you in a position to be doing that? Are you in a holistic position, environment, family support, all of these things that, again, we talk a lot around. I feel like we talk around it. What I was hearing from you is that you saw the manifestation. It didn't matter your mother was a physician. It didn't matter your father was a physician. It didn't matter that it didn't make sense, that they're fairly healthy people. And I know that you have these 4 pillars of I know you've created the cancer rehab space, which is sort of you can speak a little bit to that, but in this is this methodology of this 4 pillars. What is it about these pillars? What are the pillars? Where'd they come from? How's the cancer rehab space supporting that?
Yeah, I think the 4 pillars really, without saying them right away, it's a whole person approach. I think at the end of the day, we are whole people. We are not just an arm, a leg, a breast, whatnot. We are a whole person, and our health and our well-being and how we go through cancer treatment. I think it's really important that we honor all of that. And if the number one thing I see is a sense of disempowerment for people going through cancer treatment, this belief that healing happens outside of them and it's something that someone does to them as opposed to being a part of that team. I am a full believer in Western medicine. I don't want this to come across that I'm not, but I think we can do even better than that and accentuate that even more. And in those 4 pillars, I talk about learn, connect, move, and grow. And what I mean by that is learn. How can we expect people to make changes in their body or help their healing if they don't understand what's going on in their body and why? So that is actually probably the biggest piece, is learning about what's going on. Connecting, I talk about connecting. Going through cancer treatment, your body sort of, for a lot of people I hear, it fails you. It's no longer a safe space. So learning how to connect or reconnect to your body in a different way. So many people are out of their bodies and don't even know how they're feeling. So how can we expect people to move and start to improve if they can't even connect to their bodies?
Or they don't even want to be there, right? They don't even want to be.
That's fair. That's fair. And there's not always safe to connect, right? So sometimes that also involves working with a psychologist or psychiatrist, because you're right, when there's trauma involved, connection can be very complicated. Movement, and I expand that beyond moving the body, but also moving the mind. So moving in a mindful, aware way. It sort of comes back to that whole concept of connecting. So it's not just exercising because you have to. It's about moving because it's a gift to your body, and moving because you want to nourish your body. And then finally growing. And I think this really just sort of encapsulates the learn, connect, and move, is that reconnecting with our bodies and ourselves in a very different way, in a much more intentional and meaningful way, and in a compassionate way without judgment and I have to, I need to. So I just, the evolution that I see working with my clients, either in person or through the cancer rehab space online, is just, it's this evolution of seeing my clients become more confident, more empowered, feeling more wise and more connected to their bodies. So
Yeah.
those are those four pillars and it's a process. It's not linear.
Yeah, exactly, right? The curvy hustle lives in everything. This concept of that everything's sort of like the shortest place between two places is a straight line. It's like, why are we going this place so fast? Like where are we going even,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, we're all going to death, guys. We're all going to death. That's where the end is. And this idea, well, what are we going to do as we live? And that's in the
Right.
curves, that's in that's in the rhymes and the rhythms and the cycles and everything that's we've really lost. And you've worked with me for a couple of years and we've known each other, that I'm all about living the life you have. And that's what I hear you're saying. So much is like,
Mm-hmm.
let's not just talk about preventing death.
Right.
That's everybody's conversation. That should be everybody's
Yeah.
conversation. you know but like long, yeah, let's actually live. Something that came to me as you were talking, which I want to make note to anyone who's listening to this, is this show is called Owning Her Health. And one of the things you guys don't know about Beth, that I do, is that as she's talking and saying this like process of um you know disconnection of the self, the reconnection of that, the ownership of just like understanding yourself, understanding your body, what's even going on, movement, nourishing movements, being aware of all of your movement through life, and then that flourishing, that idea of growing, which I feel is evolution. Evolution to me is growing, healing is evolution to me, so it's all the same thing. Was her walk through
Mm-hmm.
who she is. Healing's healing, guys. And and life is life, and evolution is evolution. And what I'm hearing is this involution part, this stage of the big game of evolution and involution, where you take all of that hero's journey. So you guys heard her hero's journey through, growing up and seeing what her mom and everything went through. But then I hear this involution coming out in her work. She's alchemizing it and bringing it out to you. And there's so many of you out here listening to this right now that have the same thing. You have the same potential of, if you would just walk it yourself. And then it's just about sharing what you want to do anyway. So thank you, Beth, so much for sharing that. Would you agree that a lot of like how you're going to really show up in the world as what it is you give your success, sacred success path, is really the walk you had to do, not just going to
Oh,
school, knowing these
oh,
things?
for sure. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Absolutely. I mean, I think that again, like going back to how I was raised, and I think in fairness, if we're talking to any physical therapist, probably how most of us were raised,
Well, that's
or
why we
most of
went
us
into
believe,
physical
right?
therapy or even
Exactly.
medicine. And a lot of, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Yeah.
Exactly, right. And I love that inner geek in me. I love when science meets kind of wisdom, or whatever you want to call it. um but for sure, I think that I really felt, as what I have come to appreciate, is that I really squashed down that creative, intuitive side of myself at a pretty young age, and that was, I think, kind of a coping strategy and necessity for what was going on in my life. But as I walked forward into adulthood and really branched out on my own, I branched out on my own because I had this intuitive sense. I had this feeling that there was so much
Exactly.
more to me and the way I wanted to practice than what I was capable of doing when I was working in someone else's space. But when I started, I'd say maybe 3 years ago, shortly before you and I met, and that's really why I reached out at the beginning, was because I had this huge desire, deep, 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 to reach more men and women and to help more men and women and to show them that, you know what, like, you can be empowered. I'm not saying going through cancer is easy, it's not, but there's so much that we can be doing to empower you and help you. um but it scared the pants off of me. Like, it absolutely, truly, I was in this total space of fear and anxiety. And what I finally sat down on, what made me kind of move to work with you, and truthfully, and a psychotherapist, it was, I
Mm-hmm.
said, I want to do this. I really want to do this, but I am scared and it's stopping me from being able to do what I want to do.
Yeah. And
And
so
so
many
to me,
successful high achievers. That's what I hear. That's why I do the work I do, because women's health is women's health. Like, again, like you said,
mhm,
it's not just breasts, vaginas, arms, legs, whatever. It
mhm,
is the concept of actually being the person you're going to be.
mhm. And that's scary, right? That's scary when you've sort of automatically squashed it down for years and years. And I knew that if I wanted to do this, I needed to start figuring out why I was so afraid and why I was feeling so anxious whenever I wanted to move forward with this. Um, and that's been a long, muddy path. And I'm okay with mud. I'm okay with muck. I'm okay with it being difficult. And a lot of people aren't, including my clients.
Mm-hmm.
um, you have to be in the right headspace. But I think for me, it was more of a curiosity exploration about, where is this anxiety coming from? Where is this fear coming from? What am I afraid of? To me, I think one thing that I picked up on is if you're afraid, you should move forward. Like to me, fear is a sign of don't stop, keep going. You might need to figure out what's causing the fear. But to me, fear is different than a gut sense that you shouldn't do something.
Right.
And I think I remember talking about that earlier. Is this really a gut sense? Is it really my intuitive sense, or is this fear talking? And if it's fear talking, okay, let's go. Let's go. Let's figure it out.
Right.
Because if
Right.
I'm afraid of it, it's something that really does mean something to me.
Right.
And working in cancer rehab and opening the cancer rehab space is truly from the depths of my soul a passion project.
Mm-hmm.
And even saying that, I get a little anxious, but that's okay because it means something.
Yeah, and it's a
It
lot.
means a
And
lot.
physiologically, if we look at like the work of Robert Dilts or just even Maslow's hierarchy of needs in terms of it's a motivational theory,
Mm-hmm,
like just getting us to act. That baseline is the physiology in both of those,
mm-hmm,
which is why it's kind of almost insane that we've had these models and we talk again around them, but we only use this in performance training. We only
mm-hmm,
use this to make a, 4-minute mile runner. We only use this to help somebody become the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And yet here we are sitting here with like, well, I've got to get this body. This is the best technology ever, and I'm not going to utilize any of this. Like, I feel so blessed that I went into athletic training and sports medicine, and I was working with this sports science mind before I even went into physical therapy. Because had I gone just into physical therapy, that was such an abrupt like, what? Like, I was like, you guys are like so disconnected. Nobody cares about the nutrition. I've watched and I've trained people already for 4 years, right? Getting my undergrad where it made a difference what they're drinking before practice. And here I have somebody after a stroke and they're giving them sugar water. This is going to be an intuitive hit. And it's going to be fearful
mm-hmm.
because you understand the tribe is not going to be comfortable with this.
I think two things. One, I would say listen and trust that inner voice or that intuitive sense.
Mm.
Don't squash it down. And I already forgot the other. Oh, yes. And the other one is act from a place of love, not from your head. Act from your heart, not from your head.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
research shows that now, right? The brain heart coherence is actually Dr. Alan Watts does a lot of work on that. If anybody's listening, you want to look into that. And Dr. Joe Dispenza been using that for his work and things like that. But it's so funny how even like the sign of the cross is like, like we get the signs all the time, and like what do these things mean? And we come to our own conclusions. So I love that. And everyone listening, you can kind of do your mirror work and follow Beth's lead on that. So I'm going to kind of flip it now, is influencing you creating this online space. Tell me a little bit of what's on that. What can we find on that? Who's that for?
Yeah. So my online space, the online cancer rehab space, it was really birthed from a desire to reach and help more people, and to empower more people, because I can't believe almost 15 years into doing one-on-one cancer rehab, and I still on a very regular basis hear people in my office saying, I wish I'd known about you sooner. And that breaks my heart. And at the same time, truthfully kind of infuriates me, that I'm like, gosh, we got to be doing better than this. So that's really what it was birthed from. So I've kind of how that's leading, or how this sort of listen and trust the inner voice. I think that if I hadn't trusted my inner voice, I wouldn't have done it, right? If I'd let fear win, I would have stopped. Um, and even my husband once asked me, why are you doing this if this freaks you out so much? And I just said to him, because I want to. Like, I deeply, deeply want to. And so that's that trusting of the inner voice. And I think sort of for where I'm at now, sort of taking my own advice is that I used to be so moved by clients who said to me, God, Beth, it could be so much worse. And I used to think, oh, that's such an amazing attitude to have. And it is. But I now challenge clients and say, yeah, but it could be so much better. And because just accepting status quo or normal isn't necessarily good enough. And so for me, it's about trusting that what I've started in the cancer rehab space, I'm just starting. It's only been a year and a half, and I have great visions for it, and to trust that process, and to keep moving forward from a place of love.
Right. And there's an online program people can get for, right?
Yeah. So my flagship program is for individuals diagnosed with breast cancer. And it will evolve, but at the moment it is a program to help support people recovering from their surgery or getting their movement mobility back. So whether it be after surgery and even after radiation, that can take a hit to how you're able to move and feel in your body.
I would assume that even like maybe if they didn't find you and it's been a couple of years after, but they have some limited range, or even that they might want to even look at those things because they didn't get the holistic model.
Right. Yeah, it's a movement and an education program, but it very much encompasses everything we've talked about today about those sort of 4 pillars, and about connecting with the body and gaining more empowerment.
And you don't have to have cancer right now, guys, or have quote unquote survived it to be looking into this, because chances are you know somebody you know them already, or you're going to know somebody. And just even if you're like a clinician or whoever hearing this, understanding that there's these resources to support you in your work. Because like you were saying, Beth, it's like, it's so frustrating. I mean, I felt that way with the Belly Guru when I was focusing on pregnancy. It was like I was in the market like 10 years, and I'm still getting I'm like, I know that, doctor. I taught a pregnancy yoga class in that damn office. Why are you here 3 weeks before birth? Like what is the disconnect? And it's just this sort of, everybody's doing their own thing and they don't think in that holistic way. So when they can't help it, they're like not moving it to like a different person to be in charge. I think there's like a little ego there. There's a little like stuff, and we've just got to change that. The center needs to be client centered. And then we have to change the attitude. So these programs, these programs online, guys, that you're hearing, these offers, they're for you to become the CEO of your life, as much it is for Beth to be expanding her business and being able to expand her mission. It's for you to get empowered so that you understand, no, you're the chief executive officer of this life. Like, you need to, if your provider can't be support on your team, you might need another provider or a supplement. You need, just like in a business, you got to bring somebody else in. So let's just say this is really, the cancer rehab space is great. You have a whole bunch of people. You've evolved that online, learning and lifestyle community. You get to do what you want to do with any of the support you get from that. We're 10 years down the line. That Beth Hoag is telling you what right now? So stepping into expecting that. Yeah. What is she saying?
Yeah. 2 words come out: dream big and believe. I guess that's 3 words. But yeah, to dream big, that it is possible, and to believe it's possible.
And as soon as you believe,
and that
then
it will happen.
Is. Right? And you got to get that belief. And that's so true. The power of belief, guys, especially if we think about it, right? We've had this rise of cancer. million reasons why, right? But not everybody who's living in this world gets cancer. A lot of people do. So there has to be something to the way, not, and it's not just about the genes, right? Because there's some, whether or not these genes get activated in you or not, we have the science, the environment that you keep, the connections, the people that, so all of these pillars that you talk make a lot of sense. So where can we find you if we're listening to you and we're like, oh man, I got to hook up with her because either I work with cancer, you know, in the cancer realm, or I'm thinking of doing that. I'm a student or something like that, even if I'm in a different discipline, or even most importantly, I don't have that. This isn't my physical therapist who's working with me or whatever. Here I am down in Mexico. Where can we find you to find out more? Just get help.
And I'd even add, even if you're just a person who knows somebody who has cancer and you want to offer them some resources, some good resources, some quality resources.
Yeah, because you have the
So the
blog
best
and
place,
everything, right?
yeah, I've got a blog, I've got videos, all sorts of free resources, in addition to paid resources, but tons of free resources. And so the best place is my home base, which is my website. And my website is www.bethhoagphysio.ca. And that, if you get to that page, you're going to get to all my resources, free and paid. There's a link to the online cancer rehab space, which are my more extensive programs. Also has my email there, links to my Instagram, my YouTube, LinkedIn. Everything is in that homepage.
Yeah, and
That's the
connect
best
with
place to
her
start.
over on her social media, over on her Instagram, because she really does some really great stories and things like that. And sometimes these are the things you might want to forward to your physician.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes,
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
need to educate. We got to get out of that hierarchy, kind of patriarchy, authoritarian, domination model. We've really got to kind of sink back. I call it the feminine, but it really is kind of the way, the flow
Mm-hmm.
of like, we can direct the tides, and sometimes it's directing it upstream, to the people
Mm-hmm.
taking care of us. And so I really appreciate what you've put together, Beth, and all the things. Is there anything closing you wanna kind of close us out with in terms of um a piece of advice or a certain word or anything from your goddess wisdom?
A piece of, gosh, one word.
However you want to play that, a sentence, a word, a quote, just something to
Yeah,
leave
I
us off
think
with on this episode.
say good old Dory, keep on swimming. I think
Mm.
is really that, um, and maybe further to that is that getting out of that victim mentality, whether or not you're in it or not, is that we really do hold so much power, so much we can be so empowered. Sometimes we need a little help depending on what our path is about how to step back into that space. But I really do believe that. And I'm not saying that from a place of a perfect life or that everything is hunky dory. I've had certainly my share of hardships as well. Um, but, someone said to me, you're blessed with the gift of perseverance and courage. And I would say maybe a bit, but I've also worked pretty damn hard to overcome those things. So it's not just about being blessed. It's about digging deep and getting the help to dig deep and keep on trucking is okay and very great.
Yeah, what is it that it says in the Bible? I'm going to paraphrase because I don't know the quotes exactly, like I don't know Psalms, whatever, whatever. But I will say it's basically faith without works is dead, and works without faith is dead. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can't just, it's not about just having the faith and having the great idea and even just knowing all this stuff. If you don't do anything with it to that potential,
Mm-hmm.
oh well,
And
somebody else
I
will.
think to circle back to that with respect to cancer, because it actually totally feeds what you just said and I just said, is that if you are listening to this and you have cancer, you're so much more than your cancer diagnosis, so much
Mm,
more, and that your
mhm.
quality of life matters during and after, not just after. And I see so many people wait until after because they're stuck in survival mode.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Beth Hoag, for talking to us on another episode of Owning Her Health. If you guys look over at the Libsyn show notes, you will see all the links for ease, but it's easy enough what she said. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. Make sure you connect with her. And we will see you next time on another episode of Owning Her Health. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening into this episode of Owning Her Health. To learn more about her personal and professional development service, visit her online at drlisahollandpt.com.